Okay. Hi, Dr. Ralph Mercer. We've been in touch on and off for quite a few years now through the World Futures Review, which you're the chief editor for, or something like that. Managing editor. Maybe that's the term we should use. And you do a lot of work in that space, and you're one of those people who have had a really interesting life, and obviously you've ended up in futures as somebody working with Sahel and Ayatollah. You guest edited or co-edited his book on CLA point 3 or 3.0, whatever it's called, that sort of stuff. Ralph, when you meet someone, maybe at a futures conference, how do you introduce yourself?
That's a good question. It varies quite a bit, I think, but I guess I introduce myself as a futures philosopher uh, because primarily because I don't practice futures studies as a traditional futurist. I don't get involved in the workshops and all
Okay.
those sort of activities unless really forced to become part of it. My interest level is very much on how our beliefs, our minds, our philosophies create the future, to create the visions we see of the future, and constrain them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's sort of where my interest lies. Obviously, getting involved, hanging out with the actual true practitioners of the thing gives me insights into what they're doing. The other reason I guess that I picked that sort of genre is I'm very much interested in how philosophies all fit together
Nice.
and how they can be reconstructed and deconstructed and reconstructed into something that's usable to take us forward in the time period that we are now in the world. So that's pretty much how I introduce myself.
Yeah.
And that usually gets one of those looks like, well, okay, where does that leave me? But
I've got to
that's
say
pretty
to
much where
people,
I am.
I tell people I'm a philosophical polygamist. I'll sleep with Foucault, I'll sleep with Derrida, with Plato, with
Yeah.
whoever comes
Yeah,
along,
yeah, yeah,
and that also people go,
yeah.
oh, but I like that.
And I guess that has a lot to do with my background because I sort of fell into futures after my retirement. I did 36 years in the Canadian military. And at the end of it, I was retired living in Italy. And somebody said, well, why don't you throw your name in for this studentship in the Open University? And I went, oh, that'd be a hoot. And in a car ride to Germany, I filled out an application form and sent it back in. They interviewed me, and I remember the interview very well because they're talking and they held up this chart and they tell data and R values and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they held it up to the screen and they said, what does that tell you? And I said, absolutely nothing. I don't know anything about data whatsoever. And the interview just sort of froze for a second. And I said, but tell me what the chart is about. And they said, well, it's about women in Asia and blah, blah, blah. So I started giving them the cultural breakdown of that area. I said, that's pretty much what your chart is going to tell you. No matter where those dots go, that's what they're going to be talking about. And I sort of passed it off as it was a nice try. And a week later, they called me and said, can you be in the UK for, I think 2 weeks? Can you get your visa and passports and everything in order? And then after 6 miserable years, I graduated with a PhD. Oh, you can
Fantastic.
strike that bit for the people that are going to do the PhD. But anyways,
Now, this is a broad church we've got in Futures 101. We've got a couple of people definitely interested in PhDs, but we've got people just checking out futures, wanting to know more,
yeah.
and so on. So it's a good story for around because it's inclusive. So when you signed up for this course, you didn't really know about futures per se. So you kind of fell into it, yes?
Yes. My original plan, which all theses fail at, was to take personal informatics and the idea of journaling from a Foucault type perspective,
Yeah.
and mash them together and being
Yeah.
able to track a person's learning day and being able to track that and to simulate better learning days as we moved along by using data and observation. Where it came apart at the seams is I couldn't find a way to make the observation part relevant,
Yeah.
rather than spiraling into narcissism or becoming a diary of all my woes or my highs. But it was never introspective enough. And there was no way to deconstruct
Yeah.
your mental process. So it died on the table, and I went off and I looked at the habitus of technology at that point.
Love that.
And as I moved into that, I came across a strange because they wanted me to do the thematic analysis, and I didn't like that because it was ridiculous. Uh, and I stumbled across a thing called causal layered analysis. And that was sort of like the aha moment for me. And I've sort of fought with them to get that pushed through. And they said, "Well, nobody here knows anything about it, so you really can't use it." And I said, "Well, as it turns out, there's a master class running in Hamburg. The guy that constructed this is
Yeah.
giving a class up there, whatever his name is, Sohail." And I said, "I got some money in my student budget. I'll pop over." And they went, "Okay." And
Not very enthusiastic, were they?
oh, they were not. After that, they pretty much washed my hands of me, because the idea of the Open University, it's a great place. Don't get me wrong. They give funding to people like me that had like a grade 11 Newfoundland background with no Bachelor of Arts or anything like that, and an opportunity to pursue higher education,
Yeah.
without a doubt. But the department I was in was very much data driven. They want you to take a bucket of data, dump it on the table, sort it again, and write a thesis of it. And I was not interested that much in that. So it was a mistake on both our parts. But anyways, causal layered analysis sort of hit the thing with me. And I carried on with the habits of technology and did my thing with that. And then I sort of like the vortex of getting slowly sucked into future studies happened as along the way. But I have to say, I think I've been I'm neurodivergent, so I have very little memories of my past.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about my childhood. I mean, it's not that it was bad or anything like that. It's just I don't have them. So my memories are formed in the future. So that pretty much
That's
positions me
very,
to,
very interesting. So neurodivergence makes you futures focused. In your case, not in all cases.
yeah. Because it's just where the little plug in your cortex gets stuck in. Mine just happens to trigger that type of behaviors. And so, I mean, in the course of a number of years, I lose those memories. I can be reminded of them. They're not gone, but they're not there in my psyche at all. I can't recall them. So I always pretty much always live in the present or in the future. For me, most of the day I'm interested in the future. So that guided me through my military career, and it guided me through my becoming an academic. And I guess now it's continued to guide me, because now I'm really interested in why people think about the future the way they do, and how their
Yeah.
belief systems shape that vision.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. So your work, you're working on a futures triangle book with Sahel, I think, and maybe somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Well, so tell us, what are you doing now? So how do you fill your day? I know that you must spend a lot of time on the editorial stuff, because that Sage system is like whack my head on the table.
Yeah, it
I
sucks.
really admire your patience and capacity to manage that. Tell us what you're up to.
Well, it was funny you mentioned that, because I was just with a guy doing a special edition like you did with the World Futures Review today.
Yeah, been
The
looking forward to it.
unenviable, both the enviable and the unenviable part of their special edition is they had over 100 articles.
This is the environmental futures one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the Sage system just is not designed to handle that. There isn't reviewers out there that are willing to participate in that type of volume of. So
yeah,
they are having some very much difficulties, and it's a shame, because obviously they hit the right landmine, because for to get that many people submitting an article, it must be an area that that should be captured by the Sage system. But right now it's not. The other part of my day I spend, I am working on my own set of uh, meditations, if you wish, I guess is an interesting term. to look at how futures thought happens across multiple perspectives. As you know, I'm right now I'm fooling around in the new humanist world, but what happens in that world
Mm.
and the post-humanist world, the quantum futures,
Yep.
the general realism, is there that much of a gap between all of those philosophies, if you
Yeah.
wish? And my contention is that the gap is not as, as wide as we believe it is.
No,
Uh,
they're complementary almost. I see them as very
yeah,
much flowing
yeah.
together.
So where does spirituality and technology and the future all fit together into this? And that's that. Future's Triangle book, obviously, beating people out of the bushes to submit articles is always an interesting hobby. And I'm about to close that off and finish editing the articles, to make them all look the same, get ready for printing, and that should be done within the next 30 to 40 days, I would think.
Okay. So yeah, so there's a lot going on, and it's interesting because not being a consultant, you're providing a different lens for what's
Yeah.
available to people who are working as futurists. Actually, do you describe yourself as a futurist? Do you say if you had to say what do you do? Do you say futurist, or maybe you say philosopher or something else?
Yeah, I try to hedge my bets, I guess, in between. If the people are aware of future studies, I call myself a philosopher of the future. If they're not, as I'm a philosopher, whose my primary interest is in people, future technology, and futures. The intersection between the three. And
Okay.
because my contention is, that there is no future without technology, and our evolution of humans is
Yeah.
intertwined with technology. So, I mean, the three of them have to be understood as a single unit. Otherwise, you're not getting the full picture.
Absolutely. I mean, that's my work as a historian, and I teach
Yeah.
history, is all about that. It's about the interplay between human consciousness, technology, and the environment. Those three, like that.
Yep.
Which is
Yep.
why I found that special issue you were talking about on environmental futures so interesting, because I think it's a real hotspot, and the fact that you guys got 100 plus um, expressions of interest, abstracts. To me, they should say goodbye to Sage or publish a few with Sage and go off and make an edited book. I think that's really what they should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you're on my list of things to talk about so I can advise Ludwig on that. But
Yeah.
that's another
Well, that's another
conversation.
conversation. We can do that
Yeah,
anytime,
yeah,
Ralph.
yeah.
So to wrap this up then, we've got a bunch of people who, a bit like you 10, 20 years ago, whenever it was that you came across futures, just coming into the field. Okay, what would be some advice you might give somebody entering the futures field?
Oh, well,
That stumped you.
yeah. I'm just not sure how to attack it. I guess what I'd do is do it in two parts. I guess. I mean, if I'd advise people when they're thinking about the future, if everybody seems to agree on this future that you've modeled. I mean, everybody's high-fiving and going down that path of having this model that you've suddenly directed. I would stop and ask who benefits.
Ah,
The second thing I would
perfect
ask,
question.
second thing I would ask is when you're standing in your future that you've created,
Yeah.
and you look left and right, who's standing there with you?
Hmm.
I mean, do they look like you? Are they old? Are they young? Are they disabled? I mean, uh, one of the interesting parts about it is in our age group, when they talk about futures, rarely do they talk about aged people in the future. Because,
Yeah.
theoretically, I'll be around the 2050. I mean, I might not be really fully there, but there's a possibility
That sounds
that,
like me.
yeah,
I'll count
yeah,
myself lucky if I'm around then.
yeah. But you know what I mean? And we're the major uh, uh, part of the future that has to be drug along rather than pushed along. For the most part, seniors are unlikely to participate and want to change and all those sort of things. So that a forgotten demographic that's rapidly exploding.
Yeah.
In a lot of countries, and we tend to concentrate on getting the youth involved, but I mean, There's a large group of population we don't spend time on. The other thing is we have to get past the point of using the human as a unit of measurement. I mean, the human as a unit of measurement for the future really limits the amount of futures we can see.
Yep.
If we have to use it to make this unit of measurement happy, then the futures are only this wide.
Yeah.
So we need to look at that, and we have to also understand that technology and the environment are partners in our evolution of our future. Without those two pieces, you can't have a future, or a very brief one, if in any case. But so those have to be things. So I think that's the advice that I would tell any future, no matter what thing you choose, that is something that you have to maintain. And the other part I would add is don't be over reliant on datafying your future, because the digital tracks the human leaves as they walk through the world are only going to bring you to where they're standing in the present. They're never going to take you past him.
Yep.
Or her. So, I mean, that area is open for your interpretation. If you draw a straight line from point A to point B to point C, then you're not making new futures. You're making very shiny future presents. I mean, because the present, a dominant present will want to replicate itself forward in time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not making
power
futures.
Of hegemony, isn't it?
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Ralph. I mean, it's really terrific. I'm really very grateful for you giving us this time. I can see that here it's lovely and like green and everything out there. For you, it's dark. You're in the middle of winter. Probably snow is a meter deep or something. Maybe, who knows?
Well, it's -8 today and it's snowing, so it's a warm day, and we're getting because of that we're getting some snow.
Good. Well, you know, my Victorian colleagues, I was talking to Jose Ramos before. It's 40 degrees plus. Down there, and so yeah, we live in different worlds, but the same world at the same time. We share the futures field and a bunch more. Actually, I think you and I have quite a lot in common in many ways.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, and I will be putting people. I will put how to contact you if people are interested in things that you've been saying. But if you could share one paper that you might have written or that you just cherish, it could be somebody else's paper too, so that it can accompany this, would be most appreciated.
Oh, I just went through that.
Don't worry about it now.
If they're interested in. If they're interested in what I'm talking about, of the looking at the futures from different perspectives, the one I wrote on the futures triangle with the SAGE system, the habitus of the future, I think I called it. It looks at it from posthumanism and agendal realism, and how the futures triangle, the way to the past, and those three sides change when you view it from a different lens, and that would give them a pretty good idea what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And I mean, any of your work would be fantastic for them to read.
Put it up. All right, okay. Ralph. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.